Welcome to episode 4 of the Tennis Pro Show. My name's Chris Suter. This good-looking guy to my side is Neil Parker. We are uniting coaches across the world. I'm from Scotland, as you can tell. Neil is from Canada. 2 coaches, 2 countries, and we are trying to get topics out there, openly discuss different ways that we can actually professionalize the tennis coaching industry. We had an amazing last guest in Rob Steckley. If you haven't seen that, go back and check him out. Neil has been speaking to another guest. Tell them about our next guest.
Well, I had a quick chat with Yves Boulais, and he started a new league. We're not going to go into the details in this video, but I really recommend that we'll put a link to his video. It won't be as long as the Rob interview, so we're going to hack it up and really bring out those salient points. But what I appreciated about what Yves is doing is he's just doing it himself. So he sees a need and he's just gone out. He's not waiting for an association to do it, and he's just doing it himself. And I think that's something, especially during COVID, that we've been highlighting is the ingenuity of pros and what they're doing. And so he's created this competition format, and I think there's so many benefits that we could talk about. And I think that's the idea of this show today, Chris.
Yeah, today we are going to blast you with 9 different benefits from team tennis, and all extracted from Yves' video. So as Neil said, we'll signpost you to that. But at the end of this show, check it out. It's amazing. He's doing it out of the goodness of his own heart, with his own kind of intuition. And now is the time, I think, for us as tennis coaches to step up and follow through with any ideas that we have. So I'm going to kick us off with benefit number 1, an obvious one, but a vital one, which is that team sports would attract new tennis players to our sport. Think of all the team sports around the world that people naturally gravitate to because of the team element. We could attract that by posting strong regional competition everywhere around the world. What else is there, Neil?
Well, we've got bringing new fans to tennis, and if you ever watch team tennis, I've seen World Team Tennis in New York, and I played college ball myself, and as a tennis parent, my son has played some team tennis. And if you've ever seen team tennis, it is so unique. I mean, if you look at the Labor Cup right now, it's one of my favorite events. The vibe at team tennis is infectious, and it without a doubt helps grow the sport.
Yeah, big time. We've also got, if everything was regionalized, reduced travel time, because this is something I see a lot in Scotland. We're quite spread out. Parents are driving 2-3 hours one way to get a match, or maybe a match or 2, and then driving 2 or 3 hours back. If we could create a regionalized league format, then the reduction in travel time would be absolutely massive. What else have we got?
Well, and just to follow up on that, I mean, Yves did talk about that. He's got 2 kids that are playing big time Div 1 ball, and so he's got some great comments on that, having been a leader of a tennis center and running junior tournaments, and the travel cost for junior events is scary, let alone you're looking to play college or get into the pros. I guess this leads into the next one, which is reducing the financial costs of all your competition, which is, we're regionalizing these competitions is something that's been overdue. And in a country like Canada, which is so vast, that to travel to these events is ridiculous. I hear it all the time from parents. It's like, geez, I want to go to another province to play an event, and it's not like the old days where you had billets where you go and stay at a kid's house and you're on a bus. Those days are gone. You got to travel with your parents, and everyone's got to stay in a hotel. So regionalizing these events and having team competition is going to hack those costs right down.
Massive. And the other element that I think parents are crying out for nowadays is this fixture list. And if you think about soccer or football, as we call it in Scotland, the parents know in August, every single game between August and the end of May. And in tennis, we have calendars that are thrown out last minute because they're so reliant on venue finding, tournament referees, and so on, that what happens is you can't schedule anything, and people are entering tournaments last minute because they just want to play. If we could create fixture lists from whatever the start of tennis year is to the end of tennis year, then we solve all those problems for parents. They can plan months in advance, which also helps other siblings that they may have and plans that they must also have.
That's such a good point, Kris, and that's another thing Yves talks about. So go check it out on that video. Is that when he's starting this league, it's a Saturday night, it's at this time, and it's going to last this long.
Yeah.
And I think the players really appreciate that, and the coaches appreciate that, because there's coaching on these teams. And of course, the fans know that every Saturday night they're going to be entertained. They're going to have a glass of wine. They're going to watch some good ball, and they're going to bring their kids because it's a great environment.
Yeah.
Another thing you've brought up is that this format provides an opportunity for top level players. And I remember getting out of college and getting into coaching, and I remember there was a pro tour, but it was so sporadic and small, and you see it all the time. And Yves talked about it in the video. Is guys get out of college and they drop the sport because there's nowhere to compete. There's nothing available for them to stay in the sport. So something like a team competition like this is going to help bring in those top guys and keep them in the sport longer, give them something to sink their teeth into.
Yeah, I think that's a massive point, because if you think of it, if you flip the logic of tennis development, most countries, they try and target young kids. So they go straight for the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And I've been saying for literally decades now that we're doing it the wrong way around. We should develop adult tennis, and it will naturally trickle down. Because think, when you were a kid, you were so desperate to play with those older kids or those adults in the teams. So if we strengthen the adult provision, then the junior stuff almost takes care of itself. We create instant role models for our players to aspire to even train with, never mind compete against. So I think that's an absolutely massive one.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we can all draw on experiences from other sports, team sports, for example, that you go out and watch.
Yeah.
I know hockey was a big part of my life here in Canada, and going out and watching my dad play, or going out and watching the top local junior team, and the environment with the kids who were just so inspired. So why can't we do the same thing in tennis?
Yeah, definitely. And linking to that, in terms of creating these club structures that actually house these events, they will bring in income streams for them. And I think equally important, if not maybe a little bit more important, is the culture of tennis that this type of event could bring. You mentioned it already. If you go to Europe, right the way across France, Spain, Germany, Italy, these types of events are local events for the community. I remember the last time I traveled to an ITF in Almere, which is just outside Amsterdam. This ITF event actually brought in grandparents, parents, aunties, uncles. The whole town came in to watch this event, and the cafe was buzzing, the bar was buzzing. They made an absolute fortune just by housing a 6 to 7 day ITF junior event. If they had this type of thing every weekend, the tennis club would become a place where people want to go and just hang out and watch great tennis, which creates a culture of tennis.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm seeing that in other sports. I think squash has done a great job in the clubs to create those kind of events, and that culture of spending money in the F&B, for example. They really pull in that money. Again, we can do this in tennis, and I get that leads into the next thing is something that Yves has done really well here is he's involved coaches. So these teams, they all have coaches. He's trying to get inspire the coaches to have a personality, because it's a show. He's trying to put on a bit of a show here. The great effect of that is not only are the coaches paid for their time to come out, but it gets them out of their environment where we all know what it's like to be grinding, and you're in such a schedule that to get out and do something different with players and put on a show, I think would re-energize coaches for the week.
Yeah.
Give them a little boost, gives them a little motivation to be paid. They feel value for what they do. So to have an event like this where coaches are paid is super, super important. And Yves really recognizes that and has linked that in to the league.
Yeah. And to bolt something else on top of that, maybe, just maybe, we could actually see a return to the days where coaches actually want to go and watch their players compete. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but in the UK, it's become a thing of the past. You know, a few people do it, but it used to be the norm. Of course, if you coach someone to play a sport, you should go and watch them play, because in my opinion, when you get to a good level, the coaching comes from the match court. It doesn't lead to the match court. It does maybe when they're younger and developing their game, but from that 12, 13 years old onwards, all of the coaching is fueled from the match court, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I just to tag onto that, I've been involved in clubs where you're paid to do that. As the head of junior tennis, that's your role, is you have to go out and watch those matches and you're paid to do it. So most clubs are not that way. It like you say, your stat always resonates with me in the UK, that 99%. You're not being paid to do something like that. So again, I come back to something that Louis has been saying for years, is you can't really call yourself a coach, a performance coach, unless you're watching and traveling with your players. You're just really doing your best to develop them at your club, but you're not really a coach unless you're watching them. So that's something that's always stuck with me. The other thing, the last thing on our list, I'll kick it off here quick, is that local businesses can get involved. And Yves is really linked well into that. He's got businesses that come in and they buy a team, and you can draft and you're kicking in some money. And I think that's a really healthy thing. Again, something that squash does really, really well in Canada. I don't know about in UK, but in Canada, you see a lot of private companies coming in, kicking in money and putting their banners out. And it just creates more incentive to get involved. So I think it's a healthy thing in tennis. To get private industry involved. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, you know, if you're a coach watching this, please, the message is the time is right. The time is never going to be more right to show entrepreneurial spirit and think outside the box and do that thing, do that idea that you've had in your head. Because Yves says it in the video, 6 years ago he had this idea, and it's taken a global pandemic for him actually to go, now's the time to do it. And that is happening across the globe right now. People are thinking outside the box and creating unique opportunities because there's a window. But we should really look at this, not just for this time, but as we go through, act now, put some sort of plan into action, go for it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We're seeing it all over the place. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just get it off the ground and do it. Don't wait. I think I said this at the top of the show. Don't wait for some association and bellyache that they don't do it. Just do it. You know?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's enough from us. That we've covered the 9 major things that Yves brings out in his video. Go and watch someone who's actually doing it, has the kind of intuition and the passion to go and do it. Hear from the man himself, and you'll hear more from us in the next episode.
Hey, thanks for doing it, Kris. Always a pleasure. Always super fun, and hey, I look forward to our next show.
Yeah. We're gonna try this high five again. See if we can get it right.